So today I am joined with at Seeking Hope and at Sig.analogy. Now, we've done a podcast before, which was called Sikhi University, COVID-19 and Sangat. But at Seeking Hope, I haven't done one with you yet. So can you tell us about your Sikhi journey and how your account came about?
Sure. So I'm a newbie to podcasts, but I'm really happy to be speaking to these guys today. Both got fantastic accounts. So the journey into Sikhi starts pretty young, I'd say as young as when a child can start to read and grasp what they're writing. In particular, it starts with Ang 479 by Bhagat Kabir ji, which is Pati Tore Malani Pati Pati Jio. My dad had a book of Shabbats, and I used to just open it randomly. And I opened it to that Shabbat one day, and I was just fascinated by the wording. If you follow Seeking Hope, you already know we're all about the words. And I was blown away by the level of metaphor, analogy, wording, poetry, rhythm. And I just got more interested from there, actually. And then it's quite the usual journey of Sikhi class, learning the Mool Mantra, learning the Ardaas, going to sleep, listening to a Saki, looking forward to Langar when I went to the Gurdwara. But I'd actually say to you, the more I've grown up, the journey's changed. I'm just finding different things about Sikhi that is taking me on different journeys. So yeah, journey started pretty young, but I'm still on that journey, I guess.
Yeah, that's so true. I think everyone's kind of changes as you grow up as well. I can definitely say that mine has. I feel like Aman can agree with me as well from our last conversation. Like both of our journeys are the exact same where we've started um we've been born and raised in a Sikh family, a Sikh household. But obviously as you get older and you start to learn a lot more on your own, your journey just changes completely. But what about your account? So how did your account come about?
Quite a deep story that I'm not going to get into because we'll be
Okay.
here for ages. But it came about with the fact that me and Seeking Hope One were having a conversation, and he kind of knows that how I use words as affirmations and how I'll use just one pankti as an affirmation. I was doing it for very specific reasons, and he said that it's a really, really good idea and you need to put it out there. Um, if people can't remember a whole pankti, at least they can start with a word. And yeah, it kind of just grew from that. I never kind of thought that people would vibe with it as much as they did, as much as they do, and hopefully will continue to do. But we're always evolving. Um, yeah, so that's the crux of it, basically.
Yeah, it's definitely very informative. I feel like your account is definitely different to like other Sikhi accounts that are out there at the moment. But today specifically, our topic is bullying, and the reason it's bullying is because not only is it one of the biggest issues worldwide, 1 in 5 people will experience bullying in their lifetime, and that's students alone. But recently, a video has been spiraling the internet of a young Sikh student who was bullied by other students outside of school grounds, but in school uniform. And it took about a week before the school actually responded to the incident. Um, this is a big issue because a lot of other Sikhs have experienced it as well. And we saw many Sikh influencers come out about their experiences with bullying, including, Inquisitive, who had made lovely artwork and captioned it with his experience of bullying. And since then, I feel like every Sikh has come out about their experience with bullying. Even in my last podcast where I spoke to at that ex squad, she spoke to me about her experience of bullying at school as well. And it's such a big issue. It's something that needs to be addressed a lot more often. Obviously, there's another major event that is happening within Sikhi as well, with the Kisan issues that are happening in India, which will hopefully be a future podcast. But I feel like this movement with the bullying side of things was very big. It needs to be talked about a lot more often than it is. because our younger generation are going to experience similar things. If we look at the likes of, Vijay Singh, who was bullied to the point where he committed suicide, and I'll get into that story a lot later, but that just shows in itself in the fact that it would happen then and it's still happening now. It's something that needs to be addressed a lot more than it is at the moment. And so using, our platforms as such, as big as or small as they are, it's very important to address issues like this, because we're on Instagram and a lot of other students are on Instagram, and a lot more younger kids are starting to use Instagram as well. So this is all things that they're going to see, and if they need help with bullying or they experience it, they want someone to talk to, it's most likely that they're going to find that on social media. And so using our platforms, as I feel like we have been over the last few weeks, to talk about it is very important. But that's why I've asked you both to join me for the podcast today, because I feel like we can talk about our individual experiences as such and discuss this issue, as well as hopefully give some good advice to students who would have gone through it that are also Sikh. So, Amin, I know that you want to speak about your experience with bullying, but before that, just for anyone that doesn't know, what is the importance of guess?
Gas is basically uncut hair. So we Sikhs, we keep our gas long and uncut from birth, and we believe it's like part of God's creation. It shouldn't be touched or like altered. And by altering it, it causes duality, which is something that we as Sikhs are trying to like avoid and like remove the illusion of this duality. So we're trying to join back with the one. So by cutting our gas, we're trying to say that we have our own identity. We're identifying ourselves with me, with the home. But when we keep our gas, we're saying that we are part of God's creation. We are part of Hukum. We will just go along with whatever Waheguru is doing. So that's why we keep gas. And it's also mentioned in our Rehetnama, by Daya Singh's Rehetnama, that we should forsake cutting our gas. And what's made it difficult for Sikhs in this society is that, like a lot of like the rest of the world, they have their viewpoint of like they're following each other and the way that the world wants to view people, which is like shaving and keeping short hairs. But our guru, who's turned their back to the world and sort of like shown the way of Gurmat, which is to live in the way of the Hukum. So our guru has told us to like face away from the world and not really pay attention to what the public have said. So that's why it's hard for Sikhs to actually keep gas. But when we do keep gas, we do face oppression from others, and we do face bullying, especially in school.
That comes about with, like, I feel like a lot of the time nowadays people don't like different, and obviously our identity is different to what society's picture of a woman or a man at this point. The whole women need to be clean shaven, no beards, no facial hair. That is what the root cause of this problem is, and a lot of that comes about because of social media, because this is all kids grow up to. They see pictures of women in magazines, or men in magazines, or on Instagram or Facebook, whatever it is, and they build this idea of what a man or a woman's meant to look like. Now we've been given a different identity, one that we fully embracing or on the journey to embrace, but society makes that very, very difficult, and that difference is the reason why bullying comes about, because kids don't know any different, so when they see different, it's weird to
Yeah,
them.
they definitely just they sort of they don't really grasp the concept of why we keep our gas, and it's sort of our fault for not educating others about it. I feel like a lot of kids should, like a lot of Sikh kids in schools should really discuss it with their peers and with their teachers, and teachers also, they should make Sikhi as part of religious education. Like they should really push to teach about every dharam and every different religious difference, so that everyone can understand and respect. It's all about respect and not being ignorant to the fact that everyone has their own views and beliefs and ways of living. And we should all try to respect that.
I think a lot of it comes down to self-empowerment as well. And I think that self-empowerment, that starts with a child being young, you know, the words you're using with the child, the experiences that a child has when they're very young are ultimately going to shape their level of identity and their level of self-confidence when they grow up. I think there's loads of adults in the world, and as a GOM, as a community, we don't really talk about it, that have to undo a lot of work from childhood to make sure that as they're growing up in adulthood, they're growing up as stable adults. And I think that conversations between kids and parents need to be at the forefront of like we're saying, the identity. And like, how Aman just touched on how parents are explaining the importance of our identity and of our guests to their kids. We really need to think about the narrative that we're feeding our kids with. A lot of the times parents just say, we're doing it, we just do it because Guru Sahib tells us that we grow our guests, or we have to grow our guests or we're going to get brought up, etc. You've heard all these kind of these things, but I think if we go for like a stronger narrative, like I'm saying that there is reasons why guess so important, like spiritual connection, energy to the earth, vibrations. Guess has been a historical representation of sovereignty and royalty from day dot. I mean, if we look at some of the classical prophets, they've all had longer hair. Even in some societies today, when they want to elevate a man to a really important status, the first thing they ask him to do is grow his hair. And I'm talking about kind of niche tribal movements, right? Yeah, and I think it just starts also with that self-empowerment.
Definitely.
And that starts at home.
That's something that I'm trying to push with my analogies also, to like educate people. Like I'm thinking of doing like a Panj Kakar series soon, so the 5Ks of Sikhi, and trying to help the Sangat to understand why we have those, because it's all good in saying that the Guru told us to keep them, but understanding the spiritual benefits can actually help us to face social, like the way that society talks to us. We can face things like bullying if we understand and have a more of a reason to keep our gaze and other kakars as well. So yeah, through my analogies, which I have one now to share about gaze, I'm trying to push that forward. So gaze, we can see that in Gurbani it mentions that gaze are like our tongues, which we jap naam with. So we, as humans, we only have one tongue, and that's out of PR and out of Nimrata. Gursikhs and Bhagats have said that they wish that they had more tongues to jap naam with, because ultimately that's what we're here for. The more we jap naam, the more we can connect. So in Gurbani, there's a punkti that mentions the fact that Bhagat wants more tongues, and they use the analogy of their case because they have lots of case around their body, and they have the analogy that the case is actually their tongues vibrating that naam. And a lot of Gursikhs in Sangat, when they actually sit in Sangat Roop and jump Naam together, they can actually feel the vibration of Naam, and that's a spiritual benefit. Because if we didn't have that case, which were vibrating, it'd be quite difficult to actually feel and experience that vibration. Uh, that's not to say that a bold person can't connect, but it's easier if there is case. Yeah, so it's actually on my page at Seeknology, where it's called Guess in a Million Tongues, and there's a bit more of an explanation there too. And I'm just hoping that I can continue with the Panch Kakar series later as well.
Yeah, that is a good idea because I've made a bunch of Kakar series myself where I discussed guess, and I think it's a basics of Sikhi video that I watched a while ago, and it really hit home in the sense of they discussed what Guru Sahib had said about us keeping our guess, and it's the idea of our guess being a fortress. It's the idea of seeing yourself in the mirror when you're down and looking at your guess, and then being reminded that Guru Sahib is there. If no one else is or nothing else, if nothing's working, then you have your guess, and Guru Sahib is there through our guess. And There was a example where it was discussed that a Sikh would walk into, say, a shop to buy cigarettes, and keeping your gas and walking into a shop to buy cigarettes, or to buy sharab, the person on the other side of the counter is going to turn around and go, hold on a second, you're Guru Sahib's son or daughter, you're not meant to be doing this. It's kind of that reminder of the things that we're not meant to do, we won't do because our guess is there. It's we'll see it all the time. It will be a part of our day, brushing your hair before you do bad, or like tying all the star, putting a junni over your head. That is a reminder that our guest is there, Guru Sahib's there. So even when things are not entirely going well during our lives, Guru Sahib is watching over us through our guests. And yeah, it's this idea of parents teaching kids the importance of our guests and why we keep our guests, as opposed to, as we said before, just telling your kid that Guru Sahib gave us our guests without reasoning. That will stop kids from being driven away from Sikhi, because they have an actual reason, and kids are like sponges, they take in so much information. So if they know the reason behind why they keep their guests, they're more likely to keep it, and hopefully more likely to not be affected when other people are saying certain things. Obviously it's easier said than done, but it's a step in the right direction. And a lot of the time bullying as such can drive students away from Sikhi because they don't want to experience that sort of hate and they want to fit in. Those students need to know why Sikhs keep their guests, so that they're not so surprised when they see another Sikh keep their guests and they don't have anything bad to say about it. There was actually story, I think this was in Baijagraj Singh's video, where he spoke about this, where a girl was being bullied and she invited all of her bullies into a room and she spoke to them about why she keeps their guests. And by the end of the conversation, all these students were crying and they essentially understood the importance of guests, and she was never bullied again. But as much as that is our fault, it's also the fault of other people, the other people around us. People need to start educating themselves on these issues and why we keep our guests.
More power to that girlie. It's such a great example though of like, if someone asks, why do you grow your hair? Why do you not cut your hair? Let's think it back to kids asking teenagers. I mean, the teenagers that I work with, if I ask them, why do you keep your hair? Why do you keep your guests? About 7 out of 10 of them are going to say, I don't know, because my family tells me to, because God said I have to, or because it's a sin if I remove any hair from my head.
Yeah, at that age, I was the same as well.
Yeah,
so,
I was exactly the same as well. And it's not empowering. I was reading a story of someone on Instagram who follows the Seeking Hope page, and he'd written his experiences of bullying, and he says that someone touched his budka in high school, and he turns around and he says to them, don't touch my budka, don't touch my head. And they say, why? And he just says, because it's God's, it belongs to God. And he says that in that moment he didn't feel entirely empowered, because he couldn't vouch for his identity, he couldn't vouch for his his roots and his form and why he's keeping his hair. And as soon as he built that relationship with Sikhi, his very personal relationship, he became so much more empowered, and now he has a proper answer to educate people, and he can do it in a way that's almost magical, that people love to then hear about it, and they go away thinking, well, you know what, that's pretty amazing. That is a pretty amazing bunch of people that are constantly pushing against the norm. I think what you guys are saying is spot on. It's about the education, about us educating other people, but first and foremost educating ourselves, because if in our own houses, in our own homes, and I don't mean physically, I mean inside ourselves, inside your very room, inside your spirit, if you don't know the answer yourself, you're never going to feel confident enough or prepared enough to answer the outside world. And I know, I mean, you just said, you gave those same answers that I suggested because I did as well.
mm-hmm.
And I guess it's because we didn't we didn't have the answers ourselves, kind of a thing.
And that's why when I came across Basics of Sikhi a couple of years ago, and their main slogan is arm yourself in knowledge. And it's about arming us, our minds, our soul, and our inner spirit, like you said, with that knowledge of why we are Sikhs, why we keep our gaze, why we are who we are. If we don't hold on to that Sikh identity, then any words that anyone says can break us down in an instant. But if we have the knowledge behind this and the Gurbani and the reason, then Guru Sahib will stay by us, and we can face anything.
Exactly. Everyone that's listening, if you know where you've come from and you know your history, nobody in the world can tell you nothing about yourself. Nobody in the world can put a label on you or determine your self-worth. That, in essence, is going to fix so many other issues and problems that people eventually come to face about identity and self-worth and struggle and validation later on in life. Because you know who you are, you know where you've come from, and you can stand on your own 2 feet and say, you know what, this is what I'm about, and you can't tell me anything about myself. You can't put those labels on me, and you can't determine my value and my worth.
I was gonna say, leading on from that, that's not us saying that, you know, once you know your self-worth, you won't get bullied. You will probably still be bullied. As I said, 1 in 5 people get bullied for whatever reason. But obviously, as we've seen, a lot of Sikhs that keep their gaze do get bullied for it because it's different. You will, but then I feel like it won't be easy at all, but you will be in a better position to then understand what you need to do about that situation, and you'll be in a better position where you can, you know how to handle that situation. Obviously, if you are being bullied, you know, and it is affecting you in a very negative way, you need to talk to people about it. There's so many you know, even online resources that you can get hold of. And do you know what? I will put some in the description as well. The places where you can go and people that you can talk to about this bullying experience. But yeah, as you were saying, you know, it's very important that we within ourselves know why we do what we do so that we can handle it a lot better. And I wasn't ever bullied for my guess, but I have been bullied for my weight. And it was that idea of like being so self-confident that even if I was getting called, you know, anorexic or whatever it was, I could then stand there and just be like, do you know what? It doesn't really matter to me. And eventually it didn't matter to me. You know, obviously at the start it would, but eventually I didn't care because I was so confident with myself, and I knew that this is something that is nothing to do with anyone else. You know, I am very confident in my skin, and that needs to be a priority of everyone. So be confident with your guests, you know, carry your guests with so much pride, learn about guests and why we have our guests. There's so many resources that you can use for that, but educate yourself, and I can tell you now that it will be a lot easier to deal with situations like that, because you will know what to do or what to say in that situation, but also how to handle it within yourself. And that is the most important thing. And that leads me to the unfortunate story of Vijay Singh, who was bullied for his case all the way back in 1996, right? So let's deep. It's been more than 20 years since that's happened, and it's still happening now, which shows that it's a big issue. But Vijay Singh was 13 years old at the time, from Manchester, and he was bullied for wearing a turban. I'm not sure if it was a turban or a bodga at the time, but bullied for keeping his gaze and looking different to his peers. He was beaten up whilst going to school, whilst coming out of school, and the school did nothing about it because it wasn't on school grounds, which is another issue that happened, you know, a few weeks ago with the kid that was bullied outside of school grounds. And because, you know, he was bullied outside of school grounds, action wasn't taken as quick. But that's obviously a problem that schools need to address. They need to be able to address situations like that where their students are being bullied by other students in that school in school uniform or out of school uniform, whatever it is, that, you know, there's so many means of bullying someone nowadays as well, like cyberbullying. So if you're gonna deal with bullying, it needs to happen wherever your students are. But the case that I was talking about, so obviously the kid was bullied walking into school and would sit in class with blood stained shirts. It got to a point where Vijay took his own life. So, you know, that should have been a turning point for schools. That should have been a turning point for Sikhs. That should have been a turning point for many people, because that should have shown everyone that, okay, this is a lot more serious than we're taking it. And there's been other cases, of course, like we've spoken about, where Sikhs have been bullied. But Aman, I know you wanted to share your experience of bullying.
And just like the recent Singh that got bullied as well, and Vijay Singh, during my time at secondary school, I used to wear a pataka, and my case used to show at the back as well. So everyone knew I had like long case, and I'd always have questions like, "Why do you keep it?" And just like we mentioned before, like I literally didn't know what the answer was to that. I just said because my guru says. But over the years, I just kept getting these questions. At some points in class, like some inquisitive students would like take my gun and say, "What's this for?" And they'd call it like a knuckle buster and like a weapon, which it is in terms of like Sikhi, like it's a shastra, it can be used, but they were just taking it the wrong way. And they took my gada, they wouldn't give it back. And I didn't know at that age that you weren't supposed to like take it off. It was meant to be a kakar. I wasn't a Mardari then, but now I am, and now I don't remove the gadas from my arms, from my wrists. But yeah, they took my gadas one time in secondary school in science class. They threw glue at my case, so I was sitting and they were sitting behind me, and I didn't know what to do, and I just accepted it and kept the glue in my case the whole day. Didn't tell any teachers because I just I just knew that the teachers wouldn't respond in the way that I'd want to, and it would just provoke the bullies to carry on. And one thing in Punjabi communities and families is that we can't. I feel like we can't really speak to our parents about this kind of issue because they'll just say "bunda ban," or like they they don't really grasp the idea of bullying, um, and they kind of like laugh it off, which is something that I couldn't get past with my family. I couldn't really tell them about it, so I just kept it to myself. Um, and through the years, this just kept continuing, and I made it through until year 11, just accepting the fact that I'm getting bullied. Didn't really tell anyone, but one thing that stuck with me in year 7, which a teacher said to me, is this phrase, which was, "Sticks and stones may break my bones, but words will never hurt me," which basically means that the only thing that will hurt is like physical abuse, like punching. But if someone says something to you, don't take it to heart, um, and don't let it affect you. And this kind of stuck with me uh, until, but I didn't really understand it until I came into Sikhi properly, because I understood that the power of Gurbani words, like seeking hope, like they probably know more about uh, the power of words. But the words of Gurbani, they have more power over the words of bullies. So using that Gurbani and connecting to the Shabad and doing Simran of Shabads, that's more powerful than overthinking and pondering over what a bully has said to you. So but that phrase has stuck with me since year 7, and through Gurbani and Sikhi and with Guru Sahib's Kirpa, I've stayed strong and I've moved past it, and I have healed. I've forgotten about the bullies, but but every now and then when such incidents happen, it does remind me of what I went through. But I'm grateful to Guru Sahib that I'm still here, and I did have points where I was thinking about suicide and like self harm, but luckily I didn't go through with that because I had some friends that I did speak to and had family members like relatives. So I'm grateful to everyone and Guru Sahib that I'm still here share, to share my my story. And I do have another story of another singer who DM'd me on Instagram. I'll share that in a little while. Just to also cope with this bullying through like writing poetry. So I know Sikhi class, I shared some poetry with her previously. But I used to write poems from when I was feeling down, and I used to convey it to the Sangat on Instagram, and that used to help me heal. So if you do find yourself, for those who are listening, who are feeling down and find it hard to like express yourself to people, then there's always ways on social media now to like get across what you're going through. And people might call you attention seeking, but honestly, it's a way to get your thoughts out there, and rather than being bottled up inside, because that can be really harmful.
Yeah, there's always ways to cope with things like this, but it's down to trying to find what works best for you. And yeah, as you said, your poetry, and I've read some of it, and it is very, very good. I don't know why you don't post them, but yeah, it's obviously that's tough, and no one wants to go through things like that. And it's like we were saying before, it comes down to educating ourselves, educating those around us as much as we can. Obviously other people should take it up themselves, where they educate themselves on different issues, but obviously that can't always be the case for everyone. So we sometimes do have to take it into our hands, and help other people understand what we do, and why we do what we do. But seeking help, did you have an experience of bullying at all?
I had two separate ones actually.
Okay.
High school was similar to Oman in the sense of the reactions of my peers around me. Couldn't understand why I would never leave my hair down, couldn't understand why, my hair was long, couldn't understand why my ears weren't pierced. But um, I was so taken back by what Aman said, and it gave me a chance to reflect on my own experience in that I had a sense of what can I say? I had a fire in my belly that I was blessed to be given by my dad and my grandma. And so I was able to be really witty and match them with their kind of nasty words, etc. Although, that's not great either. But and then it's weird because although I didn't experience the degree of it to what Aman has, it really did affect me. It really did affect my journey with Sikhi for a while. I was really kind of, when you're bitter about something, um, and you're angry at something, and I couldn't understand why I had to go through the struggle. And I mean, I understood it on a spiritual level, but I didn't understand why. Well, if my other Sikh friend can cut their hair and pierce their ears, well, why can't I? And that was my struggle at high school. Um, it was a very Muslim majority school as well, and that made it really difficult as well. Like where they made websites about Hindus and Sikhs, and like really explicit images of like the gurus and the devte and devtiyan. Um, that was really hard to deal with. And then at university, I was on a course where you would expect people to know about worldwide beliefs, and I lived out in a flat, and I went to a very, very notoriously mixed populated university, and I was bullied there, because again I had brown skin, I was Sikh. When my dad used to come to the flat, he had the star, he had his kakar. When I had friends that used to visit me, male friends, they all had the star, and those flatmates that were white couldn't understand and wanted to know why there were terrorists in the flat, is what they said to me. Couldn't understand that I was Sikh, were adamant that I was Muslim. um, so that was a really different experience as well. And it just goes to show that it can happen at any age.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
yeah.
Touched on the concept of people believing that we're terrorists, and there was actually an incident in, I think it was straight after 9/11, where there was a shooting in an
Yeah.
American Gurdwara, where
Mm.
a few Sikhs were actually shot because they were believed to be like terrorists.
Yeah.
And although this is talking about bullying, it also like spreads out to the wider theme of like oppression, because we've always been oppressed for the way we look, for the way we are. Um, but yeah, it's not just something that we face in schools. It's something that we face in like university, like you said, and in the wider community, even in the workplaces. We might not get the same opportunities that white people do, and it's all because of the stereotypes that we wear a turban, we have a long beard. But again, it's about educating those that don't know. I was even approached by um by a colored male in university, and he said he greeted me with the Muslim like greeting, and I had to like sort of say that I'm not Muslim, and I had a little, like a little conversation enlightening him that I was Sikh. So people still don't really know who we are, even in 2020.
Yeah, of course. I mean, terrorism in general, you can't attach to a religion at all. If you're a terrorist, you're a terrorist. You don't belong to any sort of religion. But yeah, like you said, not a lot of people know about Sikhi, and it is up to us to then, take it in our stride to educate people and tell people that, you know what, we are Sikh and this is what we believe in, and this is what Sikhi is, and those bullying experiences are horrible. It's not nice. No one should ever go through it. But then it's our job to make sure. I mean, we're a very strong generation. We need to try and make sure that this doesn't happen again, because it's happened for way too long now.
What's really apparent to me these days as well is Sikh on Sikh bullying. I'm picking that up a lot. Even with adults actually, and even with teenagers. If you've got someone that wears a dastar and has a dari, or you've got a gaur that wears a dastar, sometimes it's people from our own qom, from inside our qom. We share a collective identity. We all share that history of Sangarsh, where our people have been fighting for such and haq for so long. We can see that today in what's happening in Delhi, and sometimes within our qom, we're belittling each other because someone is keeping their guess. And then on the flip side, we belittle each other when someone isn't keeping their guess. So although we're kind of focusing on external parties bullying, I think internally we've got some issues in the Gorm as well. And I think when the story came out about the young boy in Telford, was it Telford?
Yes,
Yeah,
Telford.
it was
Yeah.
Telford.
I think that that came to the forefront of quite a few conversations of how people someone DM'd me about male on male comments in our GOM, where he's got a dari and his cousin that doesn't keep any guess always calls him Yanni or Baba or Guru. I mean, what is that?
Yeah, I faced that personally as well, and it's something that like it does happen within our own panth as well, and I'm not sure where it stems from. Like, I think it's a mixture of. I think it might be a bit of Punjabi culture, like seeping
Yes.
into like the Sikhs, like Sikhi, but definitely shouldn't be happening because we shouldn't be making fun of like people for keeping the roop of the guru, because that's ultimately to hukam. So I'm not sure why people do.
No, I agree with you. It definitely stems from culture, and how different our culture is to Sikhi, and how different the teachings are culturally to the teachings of Sikhi. And a lot of people are faced with culture more than they are with Sikhi nowadays, and it is true.
Yeah,
Obviously, it's a sad truth, but it is true. I am I'm someone that listens to Punjabi music, but what's within Punjabi music? It's all culture, it's all drinking, it's all these things that Sikhi doesn't teach, but young kids and even elder people will take on because it's all they're faced with. They don't learn any different, and all these comments about Gyani, and it stems from culture because it's different to what people are used to in that sense. They're brought up taught about Punjabi culture, less about Sikhi, um, and then they end up having these views and making certain comments that doesn't make it easier for our Sangat or any Sangat that are trying to approach Sikhi. And it comes down to judging other people's Sikhi, which is something that we shouldn't do at all. You can't judge someone else's Sikhi path. Whether you're Amritari or you're not, you shouldn't be one to sit there and say, you're not doing this right, or I'm doing this, why are you not doing this? Everyone's Sikhi journey is very different, and a lot of people struggle to understand that, which is something else that we need to instill within our own panth as well. That our own people should know and understand that we're all we're all trying to get to the same destination. Our journeys might be a little bit different, and they might be happening at different times. But a lot of the times I see on Instagram where you've got Gors who dress differently, who wear a little bit of makeup, and they are hated against. Now, whether you think that's right or wrong, it shouldn't be for you to say, because essentially the second you say they're wrong, you are driving someone away from Sikhi. Their path is very, very different to yours. They might be on a journey of trying to get to a point where they don't wear makeup, or even if they want to wear a little bit, it's nothing. We're not ones to judge. We should be trying to make it easier for the people within our band to actually get to the destination, which is falling at the feet of Guru Sahib. And we can't make it harder for each other. It's already hard enough as it is, with all this bullying and all these comments that we receive. So yeah, it is a problem within our own community, and it's something that needs to be fixed.
I think we've all seen recently over the various events that have been affecting us as a community, as a band, the power of our ekta, of our unity. And when we come together, most amazing, tremendous things can happen. And our history is also a testament to that, but also our living practice of Sikhi today is active testament to that. And I think until we stick together as a panth, as a qawm, we're always going to get people intruding. Always. They're always going to intrude our identity on our identity. They're always going to intrude on how we view our sangarsh, our struggle, our itihas. They're always going to intrude on how we, practice our Sikhi. They're always going to intrude on our value, and what we think of our own beliefs. And that's going to happen because we as a band, as a qawm, we've created those kind of holes and those gaps for them to get through.
Mm-hmm. So based off of that discussion, do either of you have any advice for someone that is going through bullying because of their gaze?
I'll touch upon this Singh's experience. It was a DM message from a year 10 pupil. When I joined secondary school, and it was only a boys' school, I was the only Sikh in my year. And that's something that I can relate to as well, by the way, because I was one of the only Sikhs that were wearing patka as well. So this Singh and me shared this same sort of story. There were only 5 Gaistari Sikhs in the whole school. I quickly came to realize that almost all of my school was Hindu, and that an alarming proportion were anti-Sikh. I eventually made 2 other friends who were both Hindu. Halfway through year 7, which is the first year of secondary school, one of those friends began to make comments on my patka, but I eventually started wearing the malla because the patka kept attracting attention and bullying, and it just escalated where the insults kept happening every day. And the funny thing was that he thought that everyone loved Sikhs, that no one would say anything bad about against Sikhs because they do so much good for the world, like they give langar out and stuff. So he didn't expect it to be like that. He cut off contact from those friends that were bullying him, and he told his teachers, but they just told him to they told him to not be in contact with those pupils, and that didn't really help because he'd still see them around. Every day after school, he would come home and cry. And even at the age of 12 and 11, it didn't help that the other students in the school would make comments under their breath, even at school. So it made him emotionally like vulnerable as well. And then eventually he developed anxiety. They started calling Sikhs terrorists and called Indira Gandhi, and they they linked him to Indira Gandhi because of the Sikh bodyguards, and they would insult Sant Jarnail Singh and the gurus as well. When it
Gosh.
when it came to the teachers didn't really help. They just ignored him. That's something that I faced as well. Like they didn't really do much. Um, but his support, which is where this comes into like how we can like face bullying. And for those who are listening who are going through bullying, this Singh in particular, he used Gurbani to like to get him through this, and more focusing on his studies rather than what people are saying. So he knew his GCSEs were coming up. When it comes to the age of like when you're in year 9 and year 10, you sort of understand that why you're at school and what you have to do. So he started to think about more of his studies. And when he succeeded, when he succeeded in his studies, he proved his bullies wrong. Um, yeah, so he used Gurbani. So that was one thing that he used. I also, in year 11, I started listening to Bart and going Gurdwara more, as my family used to let me go a bit more. So definitely Gurbani and Sikhi, and like falling at the feet of the Guru is the way. I used to listen to like Bhagat Kabir Ji's Bani and Bhagat Farid Ji's Bani in like on SoundCloud. That used to help as well, just to connect with some form of the Guru, because I'd always hear that Guru Sahib was the protector, the healer, the doctor. Like they were there for us, but I just didn't know how to connect. But when you find your own way, then it clicks, and you can face anything in the world. So that was the experience of the young Singh.
That last point you made was really good actually, because there's so many different ways you can connect to Sikhi. There's not just, you don't have to just go and, do your Banj Bani Adabad or, go to the Gurdwara. There's so many ways you can do it. And for me, it was through Sakya. And for a lot of people that I've spoken to, it was through the Jar Sahibzade film that came out, which was absolutely amazing because it drove a lot of Sikhs who didn't understand Sikhi as much towards Sikhi a lot more. And there's so many sources now and so many ways that people can learn about Sikhi. And yeah, definitely find your own way to connect to it, because I feel like through doing that, you will end up being a lot more stronger in yourself to deal with those situations, like we said before. But yeah, find different ways to do it. A lot of people will say it's through YouTube videos like Basics of Sikhi, films, going to the Gurdwara, doing Bart, Sakya, whatever it is. Find the way that works best for you, and everything else will just come to you straight after that. I started with doing Rera Sahib the Bard, and my mum used to teach me how to do it, and then she used to teach me all these Sakya and these different things that our Guru Sahibs had done for us, and that drove me more into Sikhi. And everything else came afterwards. And I definitely felt a lot more confident in myself to practice Sikhi. But it does take you finding what works best for you. And in terms of teachers as well, I think you mentioned that for the boy, teachers didn't do anything. That needs to, in the bluntest way possible, that needs to stop, because the more teachers don't address it, the more it's gonna, lead to problems in the future. And I think this is where teachers need to sit down and be like, what is the way that we're going to tackle this? Because it's not just Sikhs that get bullied. A lot of Muslims get bullied as well for, silly reasons. And teachers need to sit down and be like, okay, this is what is going on in our school and this is how we're going to address it. Get those silly assemblies that we had in primary school. I feel like everyone has experienced like stupid amount of assemblies that would
Yeah.
they were so pointless. Use those assemblies, use that time to educate your students on situations like this, so we can avoid people having to go through bad things. Teachers need to understand that if they have this free time to teach their students some good, it will avoid so many problems in the future. So yeah, talks assembly, there's so many people and speakers that would love to go to assemblies in primary school and talk to students about what Sikhi is and the importance of guests. And I saw this video about this Sikh man teaching students in primary school what Sikhi is with a little PowerPoint presentation, and they were so amazed and they were so excited by it. But this is the way that we're going to end up tackling that situation. It as much as it's our responsibility, as I said before, teachers need to take just as much responsibility and educate their students about the issue as well.
Another thing that was pointed out in that incident of the video, the thing in the video, was that people went onto the school website and checked out the school values. So each school has like a set of values like respect, I don't know, resilience, determination, hard work, stuff like that. But if we did like ever walk into the school, any school right now, I don't think it's those values are implemented enough and drilled into the students. I think schools could do a lot more, like workshops and like you said, assemblies, by discussing those values that we should have. Like Guru Sahib, they tell us the qualities and values we should have, like nimrata, respect, and like hard work, kirat karni, all of that. So it would avoid, by drilling those qualities and values into the students, it would kind of avoid those issues.
I think another good idea is for parents to lead constructive dialogue and restorative dialogue with management in school. I mean, schools are always open to being educated on how they can do things better for the kids. Well, you'd hope most schools are like that anyway. So for any parents listening to this podcast now, there's absolutely nothing stopping you from contacting the head of behaviour, the head of SMSC, or the head of year in your child's school, or even further up in the management scale, and saying, do you know what, I want to come in and I want to sit down with you and we need to talk about how to resolve these issues. I feel like a lot of our parents just pick up a child and take them out of school and put them in another school. Well, that's certainly been my experience when I've worked at schools as well. Like kids are coming to a new school, but the old problems weren't resolved. So they've come with the new problems, and the new problems start in the new school. The parents take them out, put them in another school. It's a continuous cycle. And somewhere down the line, we as a panth, we have to take responsibility. We have to take responsibility to say, do you know what? If people aren't going to come to us to be educated, well, then we need to go to them. And that in itself is a degree of nimrata as well, walking towards someone who's got a misunderstanding and putting out that friendly hand and saying, do you know what, let's make this situation better. So all the parents that are listening, I really implore you to look into doing things like that. And there are so many charities that can help you. There is the Sikh Helpline charity, there is Share Charity UK, there is Basics of Sikhi, there is Sikh PA. I mean, any of our handles, we'd be more than happy to have a dialogue with you. There are so many routes into making things better, and I think we need to start looking at more than one route sometimes as well.
100%. And parents at the same time, don't be scared of sending your kid to school with their guests. I know that video scared a lot of parents, seeing their kids having to go through that. It almost made parents do a double take and think, hold on, should I be sending my kid to school looking like this, because they're just going to end up being bullied? I need parents to understand at this point that your kid is so much stronger walking into school with their guests than without it. They might face some comments, but that is where it becomes your job to then educate your child and let them know why they're doing what they're doing, why they carry their guests to school, and to help them carry it with pride. Because yeah, it's not easy, but we can make it easier for not just parents, but us with siblings, or like your cousins or your friends. Like, make it easier for other Sikhs within the band to carry their guests with so much pride, to the point where, what if someone comes and says a nasty comment or something that's very negative, they know how to deal with it better. Bajar is so important. So teach one another, help one another. That's what our gurus had taught us, and that's what we need to carry with us.
And find your tribe. I think that's really important. We underestimate that. When I say find your tribe, although I know tribe has become quite a controversial word as of late, I mean your sangat.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're a child that, you know, a teenager that's in high school or university, and you're listening to this podcast, find your sangat, because that's going to make so many life experiences so much easier to deal with, because you'll come together, you'll vibe together, you'll be a safe space for each other to say, do you know what, hey, this is what happened at school today, to diffuse yourself. So you're not coming from a place of anger, you're not coming from a place of ego, you're coming from a place of, this is what happened, this is the issue, and this is how we're going to resolve it. And that's so important as well, because that's going to lead to more self-empowerment, more self-confidence as well. And again, parents that are listening, check out the sangat of your child, check out the sangat of your teenager. I don't mean invade their privacy, but I mean, as a parent, are you making sure that your child or your teenager is having positive interactions and uplifting interactions and beautiful interactions with people that look like you, that look like us? And if they aren't, well, why aren't they? And what are you going to do to change that?
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And even, do you know what, even on the lines of that, even if they aren't, do the people, like, are the people around your child aware of why your child looks like that? Are they gonna have your child back, essentially? If something goes south, are they gonna be able to stand with your child and help your child out to keep their guess intact, to keep their Sikhi intact? I feel like that is so important as well, to make sure as a parent that your child is around good people, good kids, so that they can feel more confident in themselves. And I feel like with that, when your child is around a good set of kids and a good set of people, they will then take it within their own stride to learn more about Sikhi themselves, and be able to carry their Sikhi a lot better. Guruji's 23rd hukam, if I'm correct, is mat uchi te sachi rakhni, which means to keep your intellect in religious discipline high and pure. And the only way that that's going to come about, and I talk about sangat so much because sangat is so important, whether it's Sikh sangat or not, having good sangat around you is so important, and it's such a good way of them being able to learn more about Sikhi and being more confident in your Sikhi, and then to be able to carry your Sikhi so well to the point where, you know what, if someone makes a comment, it's not going to affect you as much as it would have if you didn't know what you're doing.
Yeah, something I want to add apart, just to this, like finding your tribe kind of thing, is that so those bullies that did bully me, they actually, like, although I did have a break from them during sixth form, they actually came to my university, which was like,
Wow.
at the moment I saw them, it was a bit traumatizing. But then because I had basically, I joined the Sikh society at my university, and I'm so grateful to them because they helped me. Like you said, they add value. They like-minded people. But when I found my sangat and the Sikh society, I kind of had an identity on campus. I knew that I was a Sikh. I knew I had Kirtan on campus every Monday to go to, and I have people who I can rely on, like Sikhs, who I could trust if anything did go wrong with those people. But luckily, nothing did happen. But just that reassurance that I know I'm a Sikh on campus. I know that there are Sikhs on campus, and I know it must be hard for those who don't have a Sikh society at the university. But you can still reach out to nearby universities who you can still talk to. Who even nowadays we've got the, like, coronavirus situation where events can't happen, but things are going online. You can always go to online events that are happening via Zoom, and that can be your sangat. So do reach out to your Sikh society if you are at university. You can also make one, or you can, like, reach out to other universities like nearby. I know that in Birmingham we have about four universities, and we are a solid, like, we work together in helping Sikhi flourish in Birmingham, and hopefully that can be the case for the whole of the UK and even worldwide.
Yeah, I just want to add that the uni that I go to doesn't have a Sikh society, but I have Sikhs and good around me through my account. So that is always helpful. And obviously I've come across Sangat like yourself, which is so helpful because I can then talk to people about Sikhi a lot more, and it makes me more confident in my own Sikhi and my own Sikhi journey. So yeah, please, like as a parent, make sure that your child has access to that of some sort so that, you know, they can talk to people that are on the same path as them, and if they have questions they can work it out with someone else.
If any young things are or cause are facing bullying, reach out to older siblings who have gone through that, who have kept strong in their Sikhi, who have kept gas. I know that I have cousins who did keep their gas, and I looked up to them because I was like, if they made it through, it was, I think it was also a lot worse um back in like the 90s, which is when they grew up, because they faced like there was a lot of tension in Birmingham between Sikhs and Muslims with gangs and stuff. So I always kept that as like my strength, that if they could keep their gas during that time of violence and bullying, then so can I. So always try to reach out to siblings, cousins, even on Instagram, any influencers that you look up to, like Sikh influencers. Always discuss these issues if you're facing them, because you can really find strength in them. And also, like you mentioned before, like Sakhis, like Baitaru Singh, they kept their gas despite being uh, like executed. And if they can keep their gas during those times, then and those are our ancestors, and their blood runs through our blood, then we can face the same issue.
Exactly. And I think I'd say life is the hardest before you're about to level up. So just know that if you're going through a struggle that's based on your identity, it's because Guru Sahib is about to reveal your identity. Because how you're going to navigate through the struggle is going to determine a lot about you and the future you. So hold tight, and just when you feel alone, know that you're not alone. There are all of us, so many of us, the whole panth, the whole qawm that's behind you. And what happened in Telford again is active and living testament to that. We were all super quick to surround that young kid, and albeit not physically, most of us because of lockdown, etc., but virtually, and through our Ardaas and through our Asisa, we were there for that young kid. And yeah, just hold tight and reach out, and yeah, hold tight, definitely.
100%. And if it was me and I was talking to someone who is being bullied, like you said, look, life is very, very difficult. It wasn't given to us easy, but there are ways in which we can find ease in hardships. And I actually posted something to that young Singh who was bullied in Telford, and I posted it on my story, in which I touched on how there's a lot of censorship going on in Sikhi in general, where people are trying to hide things. And if you feel as though someone is trying to take your identity away and someone is trying to hide you from the world, I want you to stand on your feet stronger at that point and show people that you are more than capable of screaming your head off when you need to. And I don't mean that in a literal way. I mean that in a sense of standing with so much power to show people that we're not gonna just sit back and let, you know, people say some nasty things to us. Their negative energy doesn't need to be met with negative energy either. Find a way that is positive and will have a very positive impact on the person that is bullying you, to then tell them and teach them about your Sikhi. Definitely reach out to people when you need help doing that, because as I said, you know, there's loads of Sangat around to help you, no matter where we are. it's like what you said before about the whole virtual thing. We are all here to stand together, and there is power in our ekta, there's power in our unity. And you, if you are being bullied, then don't be scared of trying to find that, because it is right in front of you. And I said, that I want that kid, or any kid that is going through any of that, to put their hand out. And I can promise you now that everyone will stand and hold your hand while you're going through it. Everyone will try and help you, because we all have either experienced the struggle ourselves or seen someone go through that struggle. But yeah, just reach out to someone. Tell your teachers, tell your friends, tell your parents, don't be scared of telling your parents. And parents, please listen to your child. The whole cultural thing needs to be thrown out the window. I hope it gets easier for you. I hope it gets easier for everyone. And it is unfortunate that this is something that we still have to face years and years down the line. But if we all stand together, hopefully one day this problem will come to an end, and a lot of more people will be a lot more educated on the issue, to the point where we don't have to face anything like this, and the generations to come don't have to face anything like this either.
And also, to any parents that are listening and are struggling on this journey as well, because parenting itself is such a unique journey. The support is there, but please do reach out. There are so many amazing organizations. And I know that Sikhi class is going to add a bunch of organizations to the description of this podcast. But just off the top of my head, there is Share Charity UK, there is Basics of Sikhi, there is a bunch of parents on Instagram that showcase their parenting and their Sikhi journey intertwined. And I know they're always saying, reach out if you want a conversation. But just make the move, and also know that you're not alone. And all of us, without our parents, we would be nothing in so many ways. And yeah, we're just all here to support each other.
So I'd like to thank both of you for joining me today. Obviously, the issue that we spoke about can be controversial to some. I'd like to say to anyone that is listening to us, if you feel like we have said anything wrong, please forgive us. We're young, we're still learning, and we're trying to promote goodness into the world and into our Sangat. And as for you two, please let everyone know where they can find you and what it is that you do, and the handles of your accounts.
Right. So me personally, I'm a student at university, and I've created Seeknology to promote metaphors in Gurbani, and also to show that Sikhi is everywhere around us. Like, we can literally see Waheguru in the creation itself, and appreciating the creator whilst looking at the creation. So my Instagram handle is at seek.analogy. And if you're ever facing any issues that we've discussed today, or anything regarding Sikhi, bullying, or any suggestions that you might have about analogies, then do feel free to DM me, and we can discuss there. I'm literally open to anything. And like I've discussed here, I've had my fair share of like experience with bullying, so I could definitely help if there are any young sings or cores out there that are facing this. But yeah, thank you very much, Sikhi class, for having me on today.
So you can find us both at Seeking Hope, that is our handle. Come by, say hello, drop into our DMs, let us know how you're doing. I myself, I work in education, and I'm a writer, and obviously therefore I'm the writer for the page. And the other half of Seeking Hope is a design genius, and he works in design and marketing. Feel free to stop by the page. Our page is all about self-empowerment. If you can't empower yourself, you're not going to know how to empower the world. And we're all on this journey together. I'm still trying to empower myself, and I'm just sharing that journey with you guys. Also teaching you the power of words. Every single word that you say, that you speak, that you hear, your body's listening, your spirit's listening, your cells are listening. So make them nice words about yourself and to yourself. Yeah, so come by and say hello. And thank you so much to Sikhi class for having me on the podcast. And thank you to Seeknology for being an amazing co-podcaster. Is that a word?
We can make it a word.
Okay, there we go.